Welcome back to the Broadman Word, and we are continuing to walk through the life of Peter. And this time, we are going to take a look at something that Peter says and does. But it is just on the backdrop of one of the most, I would say, the most famous miracle that Jesus did, and that was him walking on the water. Is just crazy to think about, and so we're going to walk through that today. Of course, the fact that Jesus is in control of everything, including weather, including nature, should be an encouraging thing. But we're also going to take a look at courage. We're going to take a look at bravery, but we're also going to take a look at fear as well within the life of Peter, because that really does kind of crop back up, specifically with his denying of Jesus 3 times later on. So, with that being said, turn with me to Matthew chapter 14. We're going to be looking at verses 22 through 33 today. There is a mention of Jesus walking on water in Mark 6 and John 6, but there is some distinctions to that, and we'll get to that in just a second. But let's start in Matthew chapter 14, verse 22. Immediately he, being Jesus, made the disciples get into the boat and go before him to the other side, while he dismissed the crowds. And after he had dismissed the crowds, he went up on the mountain by himself to pray. When evening came, he was there alone, but the boat by this time was a long way from the land, beaten by the waves, for the wind was against them. And in the fourth watch of the night he came to them walking on the sea. But when the disciples saw him walking on the sea, they were terrified and said, "It is a ghost," and they cried out in fear. But immediately Jesus spoke to them, saying, "Take heart, it is I. Do not be afraid." All right, we're going to pause there. So, a lot is going on here. So, you have him teaching, you have him doing his thing, ministering. This also probably happens fairly soon after the feeding of the 5,000 as well. It's just one miracle after another, basically, which then will happen again because he heals the sick in Gennesaret, which is where they go after this miracle in verses 34 through 36, or the end of Matthew chapter 14. So there's a lot of just Jesus's power being shown. You had the 5,000 with the incredible just multiplying of the bread and the fish there. Then you have him walking on water, literally controlling nature, controlling weather, and then it ends with Jesus having the power to heal the sick. And I think that is really, really cool to see. Now, what's interesting here is a couple things. First, it shows that Jesus prayed. And a lot of people have asked, why did Jesus pray if Jesus is God, which he is? Well, I think there's a couple things. First, he knows that his words and his actions that are going to be written in the Bible are there to help us. And so when it says that Jesus went up on the mountain by himself to pray, I think it is there to show, hey, if I am doing this, I want you as my followers to do the same thing. Now, it doesn't mean that we have to go up on a mountaintop to pray. It doesn't mean that at all. I think it just means, can we find time in our day to just take a step back and to spend time with God, spend time with Jesus? And I think that is a great lesson to learn. So even though he hasn't walked on water yet, that's a great lesson to see. But the other thing is, too, he is also 100% human. He's 100% God. And so his 100% human part is wanting conversation with God the Father. And so it makes sense why he spent time in prayer here for those two reasons. He wants to teach us as followers of Jesus why it is good and important to pray. And at the same time, it was refreshing to him. That was a way that he was able to spend time with God the Father. Now, the other thing that's really interesting here is how quickly the storm came about. Most likely, this is the Sea of Galilee. The reason why I say that is because of verse 34. And when they had crossed over, they came to land at Gennesaret. Well, Gennesaret is a northern part of the Sea of Galilee area. And so when it says when they had crossed over, it's talking about the Sea of Galilee. And so when you're looking at this passage in this miracle, you're thinking of the Sea of Galilee. Now, granted, it's not an ocean, but it's still a sea. But what's really interesting is how quickly it changes. And if you are in the shoes of Peter, Andrew, James, John, guys that made a living and whose fathers or grandfathers have also made a living on the sea, they should have picked up on this, and they did, by the way. I'm not saying they did. They should have picked up on, whoa, something's going really, really crazy. It was being by the waves, for the wind was against them. But then all of a sudden, in the fourth watch of the night, which is really, really interesting. It's kind of debated. A lot of scholars believe it's sometime between 3 in the morning and 6 in the morning. Don't get me wrong, I'm a night owl, but that's too much. That's too late for me. So I don't know if I'd be any good in the fourth watch of the night. But whoever was on the fourth watch of the night, they see something, and it is somebody literally walking on the sea, and they are so terrified. When they get all the disciples woken up, they're so terrified that they say is a ghost. And Jesus has to console them. Take heart, it is I. Do not be afraid. Now, I mentioned earlier that this passage is shown in Mark 6 and John 6. True. So this passage is seen in Mark chapter 6, verses 45 through 52, and then in John chapter 6, verses 16 through 21. But what's interesting is that where we just stopped in the Gospel of Matthew is where it pretty much stops. There's a little bit more there, but pretty much stops there. Now, what happens next, though, is very, very interesting. And that's where we get into Peter. So, Matthew chapter 14, verses 28 through 32. And Peter answered him, being Jesus, Lord, if it is you, command me to come to you on the water. He said, come. So Peter got out of the boat and walked on the water and came to Jesus. Now, some people have said, okay, the conditional clause there, if it is you, is to show that Peter is a man of unbelief. I get where they're coming from, but just putting myself in Peter's shoes here for a second, if I can, I'm not saying you should, but if you put yourself in Peter's shoes here for a second, it kind of makes sense, this conditional clause, if it is you, because, well, you've never seen anybody walk on water before. It has never been done. And the fact that the waves are going nuts as well, it's not like as soon as they saw Jesus walking on the water, everything was still. No, everything is still raging at this point. And yet Jesus is literally just walking on the water. I would totally understand if I said, if it is you. Now, me personally, I probably wouldn't say anything at all. I'd be freaked out. And to everybody else's credit, they were all very freaked out. To Peter's credit, he wasn't freaked out, whereas everybody else was. So the fact that he even says something shows his his courage, his bravery, and then the fact that he responds to Jesus's. It's not a request; it's a command, and it's just simply come. And so Peter gets out of the boat and he walks on the water and he starts to make his way to Jesus. There are some that believe that when it says that Peter got out of the boat and walked on the water, it was just one step. I don't think so. I think there were probably multiple steps towards Jesus. The reason why is because what happens next. Verse 30. But when he saw the wind, he was afraid, and beginning to sink, he cried out, Lord, save me. Jesus immediately reached out his hand and took hold of him, saying to him, O you of little faith, why did you doubt? All right, pause there. The reason why I think that Peter, probably took multiple steps is because of two things. You have the idea of walked on the water and came to Jesus. So he is within arm length of Jesus because of verse 31. Jesus immediately reached out his hand and took hold of him. That just shows me that Peter probably took more than one step towards Jesus, which was a crazy amount of bravery and courage. However, though, that all came just spiraling down when he saw the wind and became afraid and then began to sink, and he cried out, Lord, save me. Now, the response from Jesus to Peter is interesting because when it says, Oh, you of little faith, why did you doubt? It's not saying that Peter is an awful disciple and that when they got to the shore in Gennesaret, Jesus kicked him out of the club. Like, doesn't mean that at all. Like, for me, I think it's just this. Don't get me wrong, it's still Jesus calling out the fear that is in the heart of Peter, which again comes back to surface when he is faced with the question, don't I know you? Didn't you follow Jesus? Later on, during the trial of Jesus, he's asked this 3 times and he denies Jesus every single time. So fear is very much a thing in Peter's life. And so I'm not saying that Jesus, by the way, I'm not saying that Jesus is wrong. But I think here you're not supposed to take this as Jesus is throwing him under the bus and scolding him. Instead, he is calling out, hey, you started with such great bravery and courage to get out of the boat, to listen to what I said, to come out of the boat, to walk on the water during all this storm. And yet, in just a moment, you got distracted and then you got fearful and then you started to doubt. Well, guess what? You and I do that all the time as followers of Jesus. So it doesn't mean that Jesus is going to go up to you and says, oh, you have little faith, why did you doubt? You're no longer my follower. No, he's not going to do that at all. Instead, just like he did with Peter, he's going to give you a helping hand. And at the same time, he's going to reassure you, hey, look, I gave you the courage and the bravery to make it this far. Keep going. Don't give in to fear. I think that's what we're supposed to take away from this. Not Jesus is like, oh, well, you're too much of a fearful, warrior. Not warrior, worrier. And so therefore I can't use you. That's not what is being read here at all. Because what happens next is very, very interesting. Verse 32 and 33. And when they got into the boat, the wind ceased, and those in the boat worshipped him, saying, him, by the way, is Jesus, of course, saying, truly you are the Son of God. And so they are just in awe of the fact that Jesus has control of nature. He has the control of storms and winds and waves. He walks on the water, and then he gives Peter the power to walk on the water as well. It's not like Peter could actually walk on the water himself. No, Jesus gave him the power to do so. I think that's really, really cool to see. Um, yeah, it's a fascinating passage where you see a little bit of bravery and courage with Peter, which is encouraging to you and I. But then there's also this great encouragement slash warning about fear. Don't let fear get in the way of of your faith and your bravery and courage and trying your best to strive after Jesus, to be like Jesus in difficult circumstances. Don't let the fear that comes with those difficult circumstances start to make you sink. Don't You are running after the creator and the sustainer of the universe. So, with that being said, we shouldn't have doubt. But when we do have doubt, though, we always have the warm embrace and the outstretched arm of our Savior ready to go, ready to encourage us and support us, also get us back on track to continue to be more and more like Him. Beautiful, beautiful passage, beautiful lessons that we can learn from Jesus as He walks on water, as He helps Peter to walk on water, but also as He supports Peter once he starts to sink as well. So, thank you for spending a little bit of time with me today as we traveled through this amazing miracle that Jesus does as He walks on the water. So next time we will continue to walk through the life of Peter, and that is where we get to on Tuesday. That is where we get to this grand proclamation that Jesus is the Christ. And that is in Matthew chapter 16. And so that is where we will go next. So thank you for spending a little bit of time with me today. I will see you on Tuesday. And finally, thank you so much for understanding why I had to miss this past Tuesday as well, as I went to go be with family. But I just appreciate that as well. But we're back in it with the life of Peter. And so we will continue on as he confesses Jesus to be the Christ on Tuesday of next week. I will see you then. Thanks.